Hi everyone, we're going to talk about the zero build pipeline and the problem that we actually face in our front-end development. So actually the modern front-end development stack is a bit complex because we do not work with just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript like 20 years ago. We have templates engines, CSS preprocessors, post-CSS, the reactive UI frameworks like React, Vue, Svelte, and so on, the packers and the bundlers. And when we're dealing with development stuff, we're working with web dev servers, and we did hot reload, hot modules reloading, and so on. So because we're working on web applications and not on websites anymore, we're working on a really complex development stack. And right now, when I'm starting a new project, it often looks like that. I'm just waiting along for installing dependencies, then trying to start the project. And just bootstrapping a new project is something really, really painful because I have a lot to install, a lot to configure. And each time I want to start my development, I have just to wait for almost maybe sometimes 1 minute just to have a single view that is popping in my browser. So there is a big problem with it, and we need to tackle this issue because it's 2021 and we really need a more developer-friendly environment. So the first question to me is, why do we compile websites right now? In fact, it comes at first from modules. We started with the if pattern, which is an immediately invoked function in JavaScript that allow you to declare a function and immediately run it. And it is the basic pattern that we used in the past to start to sandbox some kind of variables just to preserve the global scope and isolate the variables. So from that, we started to work on a more common format and something that we could use and reuse everywhere. So it was the first implementation of modules with a common JS format. There was a war between another one, but never mind. But right now, the format evolved, and we now have ECMAScript modules, ES modules, that are ready to be used in the server with Node and Dino, but also directly from the browser. But because of those modules everywhere and those patterns, we still have to build for the web because we couldn't load everything in the browser, and the browser weren't ready to handle the different kinds of modules with the common JS format. So we started to work with kind of tools like Browserify, and we started to pack everything together just to deliver one JavaScript file to our final users because performance matters, and we do need to serve small and optimized JavaScript to the browser. This is the first reason we're now compiling websites and compiling web apps, because we need to pack everything and to bundle everything. And on the other side, from the last years, we now have transpilers. The trend started with CoffeeScript, but right now a lot of people are working with advanced transpilers with advanced version of the JavaScript language like TypeScript. So even if it's some kind of syntactic sugar on JavaScript, it needs to be transformed to the JavaScript version at some point, because our browser and Node and also Dino at some point just understand JavaScript and are not ready to run directly some other format like TypeScript and so on. So we do need to transform, to compile once again our language and our development language to a version that is ready to be handled by our virtual machine that is finally our browser. So this is why we're compiling our websites. we use modules, we use transpilers, we have new formats to support like WebAssembly, and we still need to tackle the performance issues because we're serving application directly into the browser of our end users. So we do need to be really careful about that. So the web evolved, and we still rely on really robust, really tough foundation like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, because they are the only languages that our environment is ready to power. But we need high-level tools to work daily. So in 21, the web building pipeline is something that we want easier for the developers, because we do not need overly complex DevTools stack. And we're stuck with that because it evolved step by step. And along the time, the language evolved too, with no ESM modules and so on. But we're still using old and legacy tools that are inspired in the past and that are not ready to tackle the modern version of the environment. So the usual suspects actually are still the same one. We have Webpack that pack every part of your application, the JavaScript, the external assets, images and fonts and CSS and so on, and whatever you want, whatever you have to serve. And behind it, we have some bundlers that are taking all the JavaScript parts to pack them and bundle them in one file, or just splitting it in different chunks ready to be served at some point, depending on the routing of the application. We have the testing suite with Jest or something like that. We have the transpilers with advanced version of the language like TypeScript. We probably use Prettier to reformat the thing, and ESLint to check the syntax, and NPM in ER to manage the dependencies. We saw that just right before this run. So, and we have any kind of specific tools specific to your framework. Even you use React or Vue or Svelte or whatever kind of front-end framework that you want. So this is really complex. And the fact that we need to compile for production because of performance issues and so on should not be mandatory during the development phase. I do not need to compile my web application to develop on it. I just want to work on it and to improve my code and serve it directly and test it, but I do not need to compile it for the production. So the idea behind it is to improve the developer experience. We talked about user experience for years right now because we want to improve the UX and we want to help people to get a better and consistent experience on our product. But as developers, we're users like any others, just our use cases are focused on development side and not on interaction on UI or something like that. So we want to focus right now. We do have to focus on the developer experience as well as we focused on the user experience in the past. So what we have right now, we have a standardized module version with the ECMAScript version that is ready to be handled in Node.js and in the browser directly. We want to use a superset of language like TypeScript, JSX, and so on. We want to be free from the registries, NPM registries, and so on. And I don't want to grab the whole NPM registry locally each time I want to work on it. I want an instant startup because I just want to work and not to wait for my application to be compiled. I want to build in HTML support to have a not reloading directly in my browser and never lose my state each time I want to test a new feature. So I just want to replace it on the fly. I need that to be extensible to stick on my specific needs, depending on my framework and so on. And I want to be focused on development. The production is another optimization, but from my developer experience, I need to be focused on development. So how to solve the bottleneck? Previously, in the past, in the last year, some people tried to focus on this problem specifically and try to find a new way to improve the developer workflow. So in the idea behind, how does it work? We will use the native ESM support from the browser directly. We do need to transform the JavaScript or compile the module. We are free to just serve an ESM module directly in the browser. So we will work on the ESM version only, and it will be served directly in my browser. I will use non-JS modules, non-ESM modules by transforming them. It means that each time I have a dependency that is not available in an ECMAScript module format, then the tool will transform it to be ready to use it in the browser in the ESM format, and that's all. I will cache the module using the cache policy of the browser. So my modules will be served once and cached and invalidated each time I want to update my version. But if I work with a React interface, I do not need to recompile and reserve React each time I want to work on my application. I just need to update my modules from my logic, but not the React core itself. So I will be free to cache it in the browser and use it directly. I will do the HTML for the on-the-fly update each time I save my file, so it will be ready to be used. And I would take advantage of the HTTP and HTTP2 features directly from my browser. About the dependencies, I won't use the Node modules version, but I will be ready to load the Node modules from the Node modules from the NPM registry directly, or whatever registry I want to use. They won't be bundled, so in my browser I will serve a lot of JavaScript file, but I don't care because this is a development environment. So everything will be served from my Node modules or from the registry directly by being dynamically loaded from them in their ECMAScript module version. It means that in my code, I can just do something really, really simple like that, import my module from my module name and use it directly. And this dependency will be served from the CDN or from the my Node modules directory if they're available in it, and passed to my browser directly. And that's all. No need to compile, no need to bundle, no need to everything like that. So basically, behind it, how does it work? This is the schema from the VITE project. VITE is this kind of bare modules tool developed by the Vue community. And the idea is each time you start a new project with VITE, the server is directly ready, and each time you have an HTTP request, the server is analyzing the route that you are using, and from this route, it deduces the different modules that we want to use in your dependency tree, and it serves them directly. So there is some kind of dynamic import directly from the browser, and you don't have to pre-build or optimize something before running everything in your browser. Your server is ready in a near to zero instant time, and everything is ready to be used directly from the server. So the current challenger about that are there are three main projects, probably a little bit more, but the main ones are Snowpack. This is the first one. It's really lightweight, really fast. It's totally agnostic, so you can use it with any kind of project you want, from a legacy jQuery code base to something really more advanced like a React new application. It will work. For the build part explicitly, it still uses Webpack and Parcel in the back, but for the development process, none of those tools are used directly. There is a plugin API that was created by the team and that is specific to Snowpack. So if you want to use some kind of plugins, you have to redevelop them. This is probably not the best way to do that, but it is highly configurable. In front of them, on the other side, we have VITE. VITE is the actual leader of this trend. It's compatible with any kind of Vue, React, or Preact, or Svelte, Lit, etc. project. So it's pretty much agnostic to, even if it's developed by the Vue community. It uses ES-Build from the dev part and rollup for the build. So it's really, really fast in kind of serving your different application. It supports multi-pages, which is really nice if you want to use it in the back to power a complex application with different entry points, like generating a static site, for example. It also works in this case. There is a kind of library mode, so you can use it still to develop a library and not only a front-end project. So you can use it to work, dev, and publish your private or open source library and use it in this context. It has CSS code splitting API, which is really fun, and the plugin API is a standard one, which is really nice because you can reuse any kind of rollup plugin already available in the past. And the third challenger is WMR. This is a tiny project. It uses a native import directly from NPM. It's feasible with the two others, but its built-in is in WMR. There is a GSS debug in the browser with native CSS modules, which is pretty fun. And HTML for static assets too. There is still rollup used in the build, and it's a HTTP2 for the development process directly. So those three ones are really, really nice. At DevRiots, where we're working, we are using VITE as a backend service. This is one of our tool, Backlight. That is a tool that is dedicated to work on design system. I will talk about it later tomorrow with in another talk about how to use design systems. But in this application, we are working on some kind of ready to be used and a live preview system. And any live preview in this application is powered directly with VITE. Each time you modify your different Markdown file or HTML file or JSX file or TypeScript or whatever you want, it's part of your source code. The preview is directly updated, and it's updated directly from VITE in a web worker, so in your browser directly. And this is really, really fast. Before that, we were working with another implementation. The rendering was done with Webpack and not using VITE directly. And this is our feedback about it. On the pros, it's really blazingly fast. We've got the native HTML, which really help to have a really quick and really, really fast rendering process. The preview is really quick, even on large code basis, because thanks to the HTML support, we just update the small part in your application, and we are ready to use MDView to embed components in our different version of the pages. So it's really nice. On the cons, it's a bit more error prone on code analysis, which means we can load a page and finally find missing dependencies. And this way, we do need to reload the entire application because we missed dependency on the first code analysis phase. So it's more error prone. We do not have a native MDX support, which is a bit missing, but we still have MDView, but it's not standard. So we need to tackle a bit about it, and we do need a dedicated worker on this part. So because right now we have the preview that is working, that is calling a service worker, that is calling a VITE worker, and so on. So it's a step more in the rendering process, but it's definitely the good way to do it from our point of view. So it's really exciting because it's a new generation of devtools. It's probably a new war, but led by great communities like Skypack, VITE, React, and so on. So this is really nice to see that and to have a trend dedicated to developers and the developer experience. It led to the ESM-oriented registries, which means that along the NPM registry, we now have Skypack and ESMSH and GSPM and NPKG and so on that are registries that are serving directly the optimized ESM version of packages, which is really nice and really fun. And Dino is also pushing in this direction. And in fact, it's really, really easy to plug it in your existing project. If you want to do it with VITE, it's really, really easy to do it. You just have to stick on your existing imports that are working with the ESM modules. You have probably some kind of few adjustments to do on the edges, just to resolve some paths or something like that. Just have to update your npm script and adding a VITE config file and remove Webpack. We did it on a project called Cresus, which is a banking open source application, and we moved from Webpack to VITE. And this is the link to the pair is in the slide. I will pass it to you. So the pair is a bit huge, but just because we are just removing the Webpack config file, and this is the most important part of the pair, and that's all. Everything is working out of the box, and this is really, really impressive and really fast right now. So thank you very much. I'm Mads, working at DevRiot, and I'm free for your question if you have.
Thank you, Mads. That was a wonderful talk. Let's see if we have some questions. Okay. I have some questions for you. So what would you say if somebody is, if somebody is already comfortable as a developer working with Webpack or Rollup? What do you think is a learning curve of, moving to VITE, for example?
The learning curve is pretty smooth because VITE is coming with everything pre-configured and pre-built for you. So in the case of the Cresus application, we just had to add a small Rollup plugin to handle the sprites, which was basically the same one we used with Webpack before. So so it was really, really simple, just a single import in the VITE config file, and that's all. Everything is working out of the box. So so there is no really learning curve about it. The most important part is just to have a look at the different kind of plugins that you will probably want. But if you are comfortable with Webpack or Rollup, this is the same plugin. So you won't be lost in your implementation.
Cool. So one quick question also. You mentioned Dino.js is kind of already sort of using VITE in their like how did you? I remember you mentioned something about Dino.
Yeah, exactly. Dino is an awesome project. For people that are not aware about it, it's the new project by the same creators of Node, but they are working on new implementation that is what Node was supposed to be in the past, with security concerns and isolation concerns and so on. So Dino right now is ready to power directly TypeScript files on the server part, and is directly using the ESM format for the modules, and are ready to use them directly from different registries, different CDN and so on. So you don't have to install your dependency locally. You just have to check out your code base and just run the Dino file, and it will grab every part of your every dependency of your application and run it directly. So this is a really cool and really impressive project, probably the future of Node or something like that. I guess so. In this context, the interesting thing is that this is the same trend that the bare module trend on the front end. We just don't want to transform the files and to have this responsibility on the developer's shoulders. This is a tool's responsibility and not the developer's one. So as a developer, I just want to focus on my code and find the right dependency to do what I want to do, and just have to load it in my final code, which could be on the server with Dino or in the front end with my my bare module tool like VITE, and everything should be working.
Cool. Thanks for that answer. I think Jon had a question.
Yes, I have a question. You mentioned you show example of a bank. You made a migration, and I was wondering if a company big enough, you have a big project, how could you quantify the migration from a complex webpack and backend stuff to something like VITE? It's how hard might be, just roughly.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. On the Cresus project, which is open source, there is something like maybe 10 or 12 contributors. So this is a small open source project, but the PR was led by just one person, and it took just one evening, one night to do it, and that's all, just few hours, because mainly it was just adjusting some paths on the assets, because we moved the assets on another folder in the structure, and remove the webpack configuration, add a VITE configuration, which is basically the default VITE configuration. So it didn't took that much time, and it's a complex project because the legacy code is something like 6 years or something like that. So it's I guess a pretty big one project. So on large code base or enterprise code bases, maybe it could take the same amount of time, something like few hours, I guess, something like that. But it's not that complex to implement and to have it in production.
Awesome.
Thank you for that. Does it also support code splitting and hot module reloading out of the box? Like,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, definitely. There is on the development side, there is a native code splitting and out module reloading built in the project. So so you don't have to do anything on your side to have it. And on the production build, it's pretty much easy to configure some split point to load chunk of code depending on the routing parts, like we did before with Webpack. So yeah, it's ready to be handled directly in the product.
Okay, that's cool. I mean, just a quick question also. What do you think about that? It still only supports like ES modules in production build. So, do you think it's a drawback, or how would you take this?
Yeah, it's complex because we still have legacy codes in the CommonJS format, and they probably won't be updated at some point or something like that. So so we do need to stick with them and to have them continuously working. I have a friend of me that is often saying that we're the only industry that is supporting in the retrocompatibility 30 years of legacy code. So so that's right. The web browser is still working on legacy web code and legacy websites. So the SM format is definitely the future, and that's really fun. But we still need to handle the CommonJS format and to be ready to tackle them. But I'm pretty sure that initiatives like the Skypack or ESMSH registries that are transforming CommonJS format to the ESM format and serve them directly from the registry is probably the best way to handle them in the future. So yeah, we will have to live with this kind of legacy code, and we won't trap them at some point. But our tools need to do that for us, and we don't have to focus on that anymore.
Quick question, maybe the last one, since I'm now very much interested in VITE. What do you think about the bundle size? Is it like compared to Webpack and Rollup? So is it like a major difference, or how do you see it?
Yeah, about VITE, it is using, for the bundling part on production, it is using ES-build on the development process, but still using rollup on the build phase. So for the build, this is still rollup on the back end. So the size of the bundle is almost the same, because it's the same tool that is bundling the different assets. But they are looking to use ES-build for the build process too. Currently, this is there is still some kind of errors on the building phase with ES-build. So they are kind of a bit not ready and not comfortable to use it in production just right now, but in the near future, I'm pretty much sure about it. And ES-build is really, really awesome in terms of optimization and shrinking the module size. So yeah, this is the same thing as with Webpack or Rollup, and it will be even more optimized in the future.
Thank you for that. So we've got some more questions. Maybe we'll take one from Jon, and then we have some questions on the YouTube, which I'll read later. Maybe Jon, you can go first.
Okay. I don't know what did you mention in your presentation. What about server rendering and React? It's possible to have some sort of holder loading, or either the VITE or Snowpack support this out of the box?
About the server-side rendering, you mean something like that?
Yeah.
I did not test on this part specifically, but on Backlight, the implementation we're using is isolated in a web worker, which is similar. That something you will have on the server with the Node.js version. So I guess, but I have to check it. I guess that the server-side rendering is pretty much handled with those kind of tools too. So yeah, it's really nice. At least I'm working for the static assets right now. I'm working with VitePress, which is a tool that is generating static content using Vite in the backend, and it supports SSL rendering, because this is exactly what it does. It just generates static HTML assets at the end. So yes, it's nicely handled and really fast.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we have a quick question. Is it easy to begin or like easy to debug as a developer?
Yeah, easy to begin, of course. Just plug a vite config.js file, took from the documentation the basic version, and run npx vite, and that's all, and you will have something ready to be used. So this will be really quick. It's really easy with as we said, a really small learning curve. And easy to debug, yes, because the debugging message in the console are really, really useful and really clear. So it's really easy to understand what is missing or not exactly using. You have a lot of feedback from the tool, so it's really, yeah, really simple.
Okay, we have one more. Webpack is such a pain, but it's too popular to be replaced. How can we convince the architects to use VITE than Webpack?
Yeah, definitely. This is a complex question. I guess the demo is probably the best way to do that. Just make simple PR to replace the Webpack config file with a VITE config file and say them, okay, check the PR and just run VITE, and you will see the difference. And everything will working the same way because this is still the same plugin API on the back and something like that. I'm pretty much confident that every team will move to this kind of tools, not VITE only, but probably also Snowpack or WMR or something like that. But yeah, definitely when the developers and the architects will see the difference in terms of just productivity and just being focused on the business code and not having something working and debugging Webpack and so on, they all will be convinced about the advantage of this application.